All right. We're diving into the world of foreign affairs officers today, folks. High stakes diplomacy, international intrigue, it's all on the table.
It's definitely a career path with a lot of impact and a lot of demands.
Totally. And the good news is we've got RoleCatcher's ultimate guide to break it all down for us.
They've really put together a comprehensive resource, haven't they?
For sure. So, to start, who are these foreign affairs officers really? What do they actually do day to day?
Well, it's not just about fancy embassy parties.
Though I'm sure those happen.
Every now and then. But seriously, it's about being a government's eyes and ears on the global stage.
So we're talking research, analysis.
Tons of research, yeah. And then putting all that information into detailed reports that inform critical decisions.
It's like being an international detective in a way.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
sifting through information, connecting the dots, and then presenting those findings in a clear, concise way.
Wow. And those reports could have serious international implications. Talk about pressure. Speaking of which, what's a typical work environment like?
RoleCatcher mentions a typical office setting.
But there's got to be more to it than that.
Oh yeah, here's where it gets exciting. Especially if you thrive in a fast-paced, unpredictable environment. Travel is a big part of this job.
Oh. Tell me more about that.
We're not just talking about a quick trip to Paris for a conference either. Think bustling foreign embassies, maybe even regions facing political instability.
Wow, that's intense.
It definitely wouldn't be for everyone. And that kind of unpredictability isn't limited to international travel, by the way.
Oh, right. Domestic travel, too.
Exactly. You might be working on policy issues that impact various parts of the country.
So you need to be adaptable, comfortable with the unexpected.
Absolutely. Which leads us to the pros and cons of this career path, the challenges and the rewards.
I'm all ears. Hit me with the highlights.
Well, on the plus side, you have the potential to shape international relations, experience different cultures firsthand.
Those are pretty incredible perks.
They really are. And then there's the potential to rise to some really high-level positions.
We're talking ambassador, special envoy kind of stuff.
Exactly. It's a career with some serious upward mobility. But of course, there's another side to that coin.
Right, the downsides. RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from those, do they?
Not at all. It's a highly competitive field, first and foremost.
Makes sense.
And the hours can be long and unpredictable. Plus, you may be stationed in places that aren't exactly glamorous.
Or safe, even from the sounds of it.
That's a reality, too.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to potentially face some challenging, even dangerous situations.
Definitely something to consider.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the toll it can take on your personal life.
Yeah, all that travel means time away from loved ones. That's a big one.
It is. It's a career that often demands a lot of sacrifice.
It's definitely a lot to weigh, those pros and cons. But, you know, it makes me think about the specific skills and knowledge you'd need to thrive in a role like this. And RoleCatcher breaks it down. Some of it is pretty expected, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like, obviously, you need a strong foundation in research, analysis, and communication.
And diplomacy. Don't forget diplomacy.
Of course. But then they get into skills like persuasion and systems evaluation. Those seem a little less obvious, maybe.
You know, it's interesting. It's not just about understanding the world of international relations. It's about being able to navigate it effectively.
Right. Put that knowledge into action.
Exactly. Like persuasion. That's
Yeah.
so crucial when you're trying to build consensus with foreign diplomats.
Oh, for sure.
Or when you're advocating for a specific policy position, or even just explaining a complex issue to the public.
So it's about communication, but also being able to see things from different perspectives.
Absolutely. Building bridges, finding common ground, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And then there's that systems evaluation piece.
Which did throw me for a bit of a loop at first, I'll admit.
Yeah, it's not the first thing that comes to mind. But think about it. Foreign governments, international organizations, these are complex systems.
Oh, absolutely.
And a foreign affairs officer needs to be able to analyze those systems, figure out where the problems are.
Or where the inefficiencies lie.
Right. And then recommend solutions. It's about taking that step back, seeing that bigger picture.
It reminds me of that case study that RoleCatcher includes about the mid-level foreign affairs officer. You know, the one stationed in that developing country.
Oh, right. The one evaluating the foreign aid program.
Yes, nobody realized that a simple bureaucratic hurdle was actually holding the whole program back, and this officer was able to spot that.
And because they had that systems level perspective, they were able to make a real difference.
It's a great example of how these analytical skills translate to real-world change. It's not just theoretical.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually gets to the heart of how these skills develop over time.
Yeah.
Because RoleCatcher also outlines those different career stages, right?
Yes. They talk about everything from entry level to senior positions. Each stage has its own unique challenges.
And expectations. So for instance, by the time you hit that mid-level, you're not just assisting with research.
You're leading it.
Exactly. And you're not just writing reports, you're advising senior officials on strategy.
That's a pretty big jump. So what would a typical day look like for someone at that stage, you think?
Hmm. Well, you're definitely juggling a lot of different responsibilities at that point. You might be overseeing multiple research projects.
Right? Keeping track of all those moving parts.
Yep. And then you're probably preparing high-level briefings for senior officials.
Making sure they have all the information they need to make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's a fast-paced role, demanding a high level of expertise and judgment.
And from the sounds of it, you need to be pretty unflappable under pressure.
That's a good way to put it. RoleCatcher describes these mid-level officers as seasoned professionals. They're not just familiar with the world of international relations, they're navigating it with confidence.
So they've really honed those skills by that point.
Exactly.
Ooh,
Okay,
yeah.
but let's back up for a moment, because before you can be a seasoned mid-level foreign affairs officer, you have to actually get your foot in the door.
Ah, right. That's where a lot of people probably hit a wall. It's such a competitive field.
It really is. So, what does RoleCatcher recommend? Where do you even begin?
Well, they highlight something that's actually super important in any field.
Oh, and what's that?
Experience. They
Mhm.
really emphasize the value of hands-on experience.
Internships.
Internships are huge, whether it's at a government agency, an international organization.
NGOs, even.
Exactly. It's all about immersing yourself in the world of international affairs. And you know what? That reminds me of something I did in college Model UN.
Oh, wow.
It felt more like a fun way to avoid actual homework at the time, but now that we're talking about it,
I bet it's all coming back to you now, right?
it really is. All those skills, researching countries, writing position papers, negotiating with other delegates, it's all relevant to this career path.
Totally. Model UN might be a simulation, but those skills definitely translate to the real world.
Yeah, it's about thinking on your feet, understanding different perspectives, and it's not just Model UN, right?
Right.
RoleCatcher also mentions leadership experience, being involved in student groups, taking initiative.
Absolutely. Showing that you're proactive, that you're passionate about this field.
And here's where RoleCatcher takes it a step further. They have a whole section on showcasing your capabilities, and it's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
It's not enough to just have the experience. You need to make it visible. Think publishing articles on international affairs,
Wow, putting yourself out there as an expert.
or building a professional website, maybe even speaking at events.
Really taking ownership of your expertise and sharing it with the world.
Exactly. It's about going above and beyond, showing that you're not just interested in this field, you're actively engaged in it.
And that's probably key in a competitive landscape like this one.
Right. You've got to stand out. Okay, let's say you've checked all those boxes. You've landed an interview. What kind of questions are they throwing at you?
Well, RoleCatcher's got you covered there, too. They offer a really comprehensive interview guide.
Which is super helpful because those interviews can be pretty intense, I imagine.
Oh, I'm sure they can be pretty rigorous. But instead of going through every single question, let's focus on one that I found particularly interesting.
Oh, yeah. Give me your best shot. What kind of curveball might they throw in there?
How about this? How do you stay objective and impartial in your work, especially when you're dealing with situations that challenge your personal beliefs?
Whoa, that's a tough one. It's got to be hard to separate your own views from, what's happening in the world.
Exactly. That's what they're getting at. Can you set aside your own opinions, your own biases?
And still provide an unbiased perspective.
Right. And sound advice, even if it goes against what you might personally believe.
It's about putting your analyst hat on, not your advocate hat.
Exactly. You're there to inform, not to influence.
This has been so insightful. So as we wrap things up here, what's the big takeaway? What do you really want our listeners to remember from all of this?
I think the key takeaway from this deep dive is that becoming a successful foreign affairs officer, it's about more than just an interest in global affairs.
It's about having a deep understanding, for sure.
Absolutely. But it's also about those intangible qualities like adaptability, cultural sensitivity.
And a willingness to keep learning and growing.
Yes, the world is constantly changing, so you need to be able to adapt.
And on that note, RoleCatcher leaves us with a final, thought-provoking question.
Wow.
How can you actively seek out mentors or further your education in international relations? Because this journey, it doesn't end here.
That's so true. It's a lifelong pursuit.
It's about always being curious, always seeking out new perspectives, always challenging your own assumptions. That's how you make a real impact.
Absolutely.
And there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the world of foreign affairs officers with invaluable insights from RoleCatcher. We hope this has sparked your curiosity, given you a taste of what it takes to navigate this challenging and rewarding career path.
And who knows? Maybe one of you listening will be the next generation of foreign affairs officers shaping international policy and building bridges across the globe.
Until next time.